Good afternoon and welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. I'm Steve Marks, Chair of the CMC Board of Trustees and President of Hannah News Service here in Columbus. It's my pleasure to welcome our in-person audience today. Today's Metro Club live streaming is presented by the Emergency Response Fund of the Columbus Foundation in partnership with the Columbus Dispatch, PNC, and NBC4i. Thank you all. And let's thank today's forum sponsors, the Columbus Partnership and NBC4. We'd also like to thank those of you who purchased a virtual seat for today's forum. We are very grateful for your continued support. You can learn more about CMC, register for events, join or renew your membership, purchase a virtual seat, or make a donation anytime at columbusmetroclub.org. It's hard to believe that it's been 5 years since we celebrated winning the Smart Cities Challenge Award. Since then, Columbus has deployed the most comprehensive portfolio of emerging mobility of any city. Let's hear more about what we achieved with the $50 million in grants from the U.S. Department of Transportation and the Paul G. Allen Family Foundation. I'll introduce the panelists by name and position. You can find more about each of them in your forum flyer and online. Please welcome Mandy Bishop, Deputy Director of Public Service, City of Columbus, Program Manager, Smart Columbus. Raja Sundararajan, who is President and Chief Operating Officer with AEP Ohio. Sophia Mohr, Chief Innovation Officer with COTA. And our host, Kerry Charles, co-anchor NBC4. The stage is yours.
Good afternoon to you, everybody. It's so good to be with you all in person, fighting over parking spaces. Haven't had to do that in a while. We are going to have a lively discussion today and very interesting. Our panel over here has informed me that they will teach me some things that I didn't know and guide me through this technology stuff. Before we get started and moving forward with the program, I do want to divert your attention to the screen over here where you see Mayor Andrew Ginther as we begin to take a look at what we will be discussing and the journey that brought us here today.
2016, Columbus won the $50 million Smart City Challenge, a chance to test the newest transportation technologies to make our city safer and more sustainable, while also preparing for growth and creating opportunity for residents.
Every sector of our community rallied to win the challenge and to turn it into a launch pad that would make Columbus an epicenter of mobility innovation.
Since winning the challenge, we've deployed the most robust portfolio of groundbreaking mobility technologies of any city in the country.
And we've done it in partnership with more than 100 partners and in collaboration with over 100,000 residents.
We've deployed autonomous vehicles to connect residents to services and tested how connected vehicles can make our streets safer. We've created tools to make it easier to navigate transit and increased electric vehicle adoption to ready our city for the future. And we did it all with people in mind, using these tools to create access to jobs and healthcare and to reduce emissions and fight climate change. Thanks to the Smart City Challenge, we've attracted investment to the region and worked to reduce congestion so our city can grow smarter. Working together, we've created pathways to prosperity for our residents.
Thanks to the Pivot app, I'm able to get myself to and from work as an essential worker easier than ever using a bus and scooter.
Food deliveries from the Linden Leap helped ensure that our neighbors got the nourishment they needed to stay safe and healthy.
Working as an operator for the Linden Leap not only equipped me with a unique skill set, it allowed me to serve my community and gave me the means to provide for my family when I needed it the most.
The Wayfinder app, it helps me get around city better.
As Jose's travel partner, it's been incredible to see him experience places like the North Market for the first time.
Finding a parking place through Park Columbus before I leave home gives me peace of mind when I'm heading downtown or to the short north.
The safety alerts were helpful. It made me aware of some things I wouldn't have noticed otherwise. It made me feel safer as I took my granddaughter back and forth to dance every day.
Through the Smart City Challenge, we helped connect residents with opportunity and created a roadmap that cities around the country can follow. Today, mobility innovation is thriving in our city.
The challenge harnessed Columbus's collaborative spirit and inspired innovation throughout our region.
Smart Columbus challenged us to think differently about how we get to work and how we design our work environment.
We've applied what we learned in Columbus to projects in 20 other cities nationwide.
We've gained valuable insight from Rides for Baby and are now expanding same-day transportation benefits to better serve our clients.
Thanks to the Smart Cities Challenge, we're becoming a city of the future, recognized globally for innovation, giving us an edge over cities for investment, development, and talent.
Columbus now leads the nation for autonomous vehicle research and real-world deployments, attracting even more activity to the region.
We're making unprecedented investments in electric vehicle infrastructure and renewable energy, changing our region's trajectory for greenhouse gas emissions.
We're building from the lessons of the challenge to transform other aspects of our community, using technology and data to improve access to food, job training, and other critical community services.
Together, we've uncovered new ways to create opportunity and improve quality of life for our residents. Moving forward, Smart Columbus will look beyond mobility, anticipating what's new and next at the intersection of technology and community good, so that we can address some of our community's most pressing challenges, from access to jobs to digital connectivity to climate change. Columbus, thank you for innovating with us through this incredible opportunity. We look forward to working with you to continue to become a modern and thriving city. Everyone has a role to play so that we can create prosperity and together transport our city to the future.
All right, Columbus is looking good. I like it. I like it. I know we like to start on the high note, and oftentimes the bosses are watching. So we're going to start with that kind of braggadocious spirit here. I want each of you to chime in on the role that each of your organizations played in this.
Thanks, Kerry. The City of Columbus really played the delivery role. We focused on operationalizing the program and really bringing the USDOT Smart City Challenge to life. It was really focused on 12 vision elements and urban automation, connected, intelligent, sensor-based infrastructure, smart grid, electric vehicles, how advanced data and ITS tech and applications can really reduce congestion, keep travelers safe, and really just help advance the technology in a mid-sized city in the U.S. So we really played that driver and that delivery role.
Roger.
Yeah, actually, I'll be honest with you. In order to make the city smart, we needed AEP to be smart. So that was the and it's kind of amazing. We still are, given that the city wants to go in this prosperity direction where you have all the electric vehicles and the transportation being in the modern technology world, the infrastructure that we have to serve that was still antiquated. And that's what we spent a lot of dollars in terms of installing what we call smart meters in various homes. Because till now, our ability to even know if there's an outage was predominantly based on people calling our call center and saying, I don't have power in my house. And that's not the way you want to operate when you have electric vehicle in your home. If you thought you had a bad day, if you have a power outage, you really have a bad day when you don't have electric, where you can't go anywhere and you're stuck at home, right? So that's the problem. So we had to make the company smarter. So we did a lot of investments on our side and also the EV charging stations. I mean, you can probably go in any part of Columbus and you're going to run into EV charging within a 3-mile radius. And that could not have happened without Smart City.
Roger, what I heard was that the problem is when you're stuck at home with your family without electricity. Is that what you said? That's not
yes,
what
that's what I said.
Sophia.
COTA was really appreciated being a partner with the Smart Columbus. Mobility is such a large part of what Smart Columbus is, and technology is a big piece of that. So we wanted to make sure that as we are innovating, that we were part of that technology and mobility aspect. We participated in projects such as the Connected Vehicle Project, which is a really important part of where traffic and safety are going. So we participate in all those different types of aspects.
But this is a quality of life issue we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Discuss that. How so?
I think the big thing that technology does is it allows you to solve problems in new ways that you have not been able to before. For example, the connected vehicle technology allows different vehicles to talk to the infrastructure and allows for less time on congestion, but also could lessen the number of accidents as well. And I think that's something that technology provides aspects for us that we would not have had before if we hadn't had this investment into the city.
We talk about quality of life. I mean, it's played out. I know when we look at this video, we see the works in Linden with that shuttle.
Yes.
Now, we had some problems that we couldn't control, the pandemic, anyone, in case you didn't know. But you all were making strides.
Yeah, it all goes back to the fact that our program is rooted in the guiding principle that mobility is the great equalizer, and that we tackled this program with user and resident needs in mind. And so we really were focused on ensuring that we were solving challenges in our community. So even when we launched the shuttle, the second shuttle in Linden, we were really focused on connecting people to services that they need at St. Stephen's. So solving that first mile, last mile connection. And when the pandemic struck, we really had to respond to what the resident needs were. And we were seeing food pantry usage soar nationally, and we were seeing it soar in our Columbus community, and especially in Linden. So we stepped in and partnered up with St. Stephen's, again, partner throughout the program, and said, how can we help? And they're like, okay, we need to create some social distancing. We need to get food into the neighborhood because some folks are lugging these boxes many, many, many blocks. And so we really reinvented the shuttle to serve a different purpose and bring 130,000 meals to residents and over 15,000 masks.
So where do we go from here now that we've had the pandemic come in, disrupt things, the shuttles have moved on? Where do we go from here in that realm?
So in that realm, we have to build back better. What we did was prove that that the service was needed. St. Stephen's is taking leadership in operating a food pantry delivery service in the Linden neighborhood. And that's going to continue through September of 2021, when we'll reevaluate using CARES Act dollars. But overall, we really have to look at how we want to build back. Everybody's like, I hear a lot of people say, I want to get back to normal. Okay, what is our new normal? Because I don't want to go back to the same way we were doing things before. So I think technology and the platforms we've built and the partnerships that we've built through Smart Columbus can help serve a broader purpose and help us build back better.
Raja, as we move forward and we think about this, we see the light, like that bright light right there. That's the end of the tunnel. And we're going to get there. We're almost there. How is AEP moving in the future when we talk about smart?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we strongly believe that the utility is successful as long as our customers are successful. There is no way you will have a stronger utility that if the customers are not thriving and participating. And the only way it can happen is if the smart technology is not just focused on, typically any new technology is adopted by the more well-to-do individuals as opposed to not so well-to-do folks, right? And the only way this can actually benefit if it gets promulgated across the entire population. And we actually strongly believe EVs are coming. Electric vehicles are coming. As you can read any news article, General Motors, Ford, and I used to work for General Motors. When GM puts out a statement saying by 2030, all new production of automotives will be electric vehicles, that is a huge statement. That means that not only the new vehicles, but the used vehicles at some point will be electric vehicles. So if we don't have the infrastructure ready for that by 2030, we have bigger problems to solve. So that's where we are trying to get ahead of it by building the infrastructure, by providing not only electric vehicle charging platforms in the high-income neighborhoods, but also in the low-income neighborhoods. In fact, 20% of our charging stations are in low-income neighborhoods, because the only way you can solve electric vehicle adoption is to resolve what is called the range anxiety. And typically when you see your fuel tank go down less than 50 miles, you panic. If you have an electric vehicle car, you panic even more, because now you're worried about where the next fuel tank is, because the gas stations where it's not where you thought it was, right? And so that's the obligation that we have, because now we're not only a utility provider, but in some ways we are a transportation provider as an electric company. And that obligation is a lot more serious than what it used to be, and we want to make sure that we are ready for it.
I think it can be intimidating to some folks to hear this. I was telling them I have an iPhone 7, don't laugh. and an 8+. I don't want to do all of these advancements and stuff. It's intimidating. So when you talk about going to an electric vehicle, if I'm intimidated, I'm thinking about those senior citizens who see this, some senior citizens, my mother, who would be intimidated about moving on through this next era in society. What are you all doing to help people make this transition?
From a technology perspective, I think we all have to step back and realize it's just another tool in the toolbox and not be intimidated. And I know that's a little easier said than done, but one of our best examples of helping train people to use technology was through our mobility assistance application. And that helped persons with cognitive impairment navigate our fixed route bus service. And that particular application allowed people, like you, Jose, you saw in the video, access places they'd never been before. So I think once you train people, put the infrastructure in place to help them understand the technology that can help them live their best life, that people are going to gravitate more towards it. So it's also a little bit of a culture change and educational component. And I think that's what will continue with Smart Columbus as it transitions from focus primarily on the USDOT and Paul G. Allen awards into that next phase.
I strongly believe the more easiest way to make that happen is make the technology as seamless as possible. I mean, you know, and I think it's very easy to realize our kids are much more smarter than iPhone 7s, and in fact, they'll tell you what all the things that Tesla can do before you know what the capabilities of Tesla is. So if you go on that concept that, and that technology, as long as it is seamless, and that goes to in terms of how as a utility we operate. So we're thinking about providing time of use charging. That means that the car knows when the best optimal time to charge is from a pricing point of view, because you have a lot more renewable energy in the night and because of all the wind farms and even certain parts of the day. Mm-hmm. So you actually know when to charge and when to discharge into the grid, and it cannot be at the expense of let the customer decide, well, we expect the customer to be educated. There'll be some population that'll be educated, but most of it will happen as long as you make it seamless and transparent.
Sophia, I'd have to imagine that's a challenge when it comes to COTA, is trying to get people to trust the changes in technology.
Absolutely. As we were talking about before, with COTA, we really see ourselves as the mobility backbone. And one of COTA's mission is to move every life forward. But to me, that really means leaving no one behind. That when we decide systems for people, it has to work for everyone in our community. And I'll take something that Raja just said about seamless, is when you think about things like connected vehicles that are talking to our infrastructure, right? The technology is doing some of the things for you. It's not necessarily on the person. However, we are still also designing other types of systems. We're looking at a new fare management system, and one of the interesting features of that new fare management system is it's going to allow for fare capping. So with your mobile device, you'll be able to create an account on there, and if you are someone who cannot buy a monthly pass, you may be paying more for transit because you're paying it in smaller increments. With technology such as fare capping, they can keep track of how much you've spent on your account for the month, and once you've reached that limit, you'll no longer be charged. But these are things that are great and exciting, innovative types of things, but we also need to make sure that our community and our customers understand how to use the technology. And it's really important that we look at the customer experience of how people are using it, understanding their backgrounds, how are they using it, what kind of challenges they might have with it, what if someone may have a smartphone but does not have cellular, how will that work? Those are all the different aspects that we want to make sure that no one's left behind with all this great technology and innovation that we're working on.
I think one of the things that will come to mind for sure is that as we are thinking about this kind of transition, when we talk about this infrastructure and smart technology, we have to talk about jobs. We've seen some growth through this project, am I right?
Yes. Yeah, we saw OSU was our key research partner, and we saw job growth estimated at direct and ancillary jobs around 2,300 jobs for the program. And some direct jobs that we created as part of the program, we hired operators from the local area. Our first operator was Empower Bus, and they partnered up with a France-based firm called Easy Mile, and they helped us operate and hire local operators in the community. One of them, Sherry Lowell, that you saw in the video, remained with us as Easy Mile took over operations when Empower Bus no longer ceased operations during the pandemic. And her story is that this job helped her buy a home to support her grandchildren and a car. And that's what technology can do when you work to make sure it's inclusive and focus on the workforce component. We also did that with Sophia's talked a lot about the Connected Vehicle Project. We recruited folks, we worked with Two Brothers, a local automotive shop, to install our connected vehicle equipment on private sector vehicles. And that created 12 to 15 trainees. Ultimately, 3 of those were hired by Two Brothers. So technology, people think it's this flashy, shiny thing. It's something that can bring more opportunity to our community as long as we keep that in mind.
Could you all also talk about your organizations and employment in the community, how we will see advancements?
Yeah, clearly the infrastructure improvements that we are making has added significant amount of jobs into the economy. We close to invest just in the distribution system in Ohio, which is the wire side of the business. We close to invest around $400 million in that business, and that basically 80% of that dollars goes to labor. So that is effectively all the jobs that are being deployed in various parts of Ohio in improving the grid. I think every technology transition, the fear of jobs is always there. Mm-hmm. I saw an article where effectively when Ford introduced the Model T, when the horse car buggies were converting into Model Ts, there was a huge paper articles at that time talking about how the job and the horse carriage operators are going to lose their jobs. And how the Ford Model T is going to take over, and nobody's going to have that, nobody's going to ride horses anymore. Well, guess what? I think you can also do, the automotive sector has produced a lot more jobs over the time period than back then. So, I mean, I think I think the uncertainty of where the jobs are going to come in as the technology transitions is always a question. But in every cycle, you can always see that the jobs element has been satisfied. In fact, the value added element of the employment actually has gone up over various time cycles. So,
I think one important aspect of it is as companies transition, what is their workforce training? So, for example, speaking of electric vehicles, COTA is taking on 2 electric buses this year. We just arrived in June. And how do we train our workforce to that evolving and changing technology, I think is a really important aspect of it. I think we're seeing how the job market is going up and down, and I think nothing can be better than when you can actually help your organization and your workforce changing to the jobs that are coming up as we transition as an organization.
So what does that, and not walking us through the program, but what does that look like on the overall scale? Because if we're talking about different forms of education, we're talking about disparities in education, I'd imagine some folks might get left behind.
Yeah, I think that is something at COTA that we've talked about a lot is, as I mentioned, like our mission is moving every life forward, is that we don't want to leave everyone behind. That also means having partnerships with local schools and universities, so we can keep that pipeline going of new talent that comes in. But training is a really important part, and the electric vehicle one is a perfect example. It's a different skill set, and we want to make sure that our workforce is trained for that.
What about within the current workforce, either of you, when you're talking about those more seasoned employees who may be intimidated that this change in technology, smart technology, is going to push them out of their positions, and making that adjustment, that has to be a fear.
Yeah, we've gone through that transformation multiple times. When when AEP Ohio moved from predominantly a fossil fuel generation fleet, and now obviously we sold our generation assets, but in every transition we had more folks doing significantly more value-added work. And right now, in fact, as in our AEP Ohio field employees, we have around 2,000 employees that day on day, either restore power or add new connection service, and if there's any major storms, they make sure that the grid is intact. And I think now the way they do it is now completely transformed. Everyone, even the most seasoned AEP Ohio line mechanic who's been in the service for 30 years, use their cell phones. They have an app that tells you where the outages happened. They go directly to that location and they can restore the power much more efficiently, and they actually like it. It's amazing when you empower people in terms of and give the right technology. It's probably you have the first difficulty of going through the learning curve, but once you like it, instead of driving 2.5 hours finding out where the outage is, now they exactly know the outage location, and they love it. So it is a transition that I think our employees need to go through. There is certainly a significant amount of training and investment as companies we do need to make, but once you make it, their day-to-day lives is much more enriched than it used to be before.
And I guess you also see the trickle-down effect to the customers because you don't have that employee driving around in circles.
Absolutely. You got it.
Yeah, Kerry, if I could add a little bit more to that conversation. Smart Columbus partnered with the Columbus-Franklin County Workforce Development Board, Lisa Pat McDaniel and Carisha, and we did a future of work study, and we really focused on looking at certificate programs and trying to anticipate the changes that are coming. One of the key messages from the future of work study is that automation is coming, and it's probably going to be accelerated a little bit, and more technology is coming into play. So we really need to partner with our workforce development boards and prepare for some transitioning as we move forward more globally on a county and regional level.
I think the aspect of how socioeconomic disparities will really play a role into this. We touched on just a bit about how the pandemic affected the work that you all have been doing with this program. But through that, I would like for you to share some of the challenges that you ran into, were able to overcome, and that we're going to see in the future, probably sustained sometime.
Absolutely. I'd say after I picked myself off the floor for a moment, we all had to take a step back and really focus on our families and transitioning our workforce to work from home, and that was first priority one. As we were, and I shared this morning, as we were looking at the program, I wasn't panicking, but I was really going, okay, how are we going to complete a program that's focused on mobility? We were largely wrapping up the Paul G. Allen Foundation work, and that was wrapping up the end of March 2020, but we still had many of our projects to deploy for the Smart City Challenge, and I have an amazing team. I have my deputy program manager, Andy Wolpert. I was like, okay, how's this going to work? And I was kind of like getting a little erratic, and he's like, virtually grabbed me by the arms and like, Mandy, we can do this. Here's the assessment of the program. Here's what's actually going to be able to be completed right now in its current form. Here's the date we're assessing the scope. Here's the anticipated outcomes. And so and here's the projects that we're going to have to switch to something different. And that was really the self-driving shuttle. And so once we stepped back and knew that people were going to be moving, but they were going to be moving differently, we had to align our messaging with the state messaging, local messaging, that essential travel only. We had to pivot, so we pivoted our Pivot app to really focus on capturing that essential worker, like Morgan, who helped use it to get to and from her essential job every day. We pivoted our self-driving shuttle to food delivery. As I shared, we were seeing food pantry usage soar nationally. And the impact of the pandemic, although it affected participants and participation in the program, ultimately we were able to see that technology can benefit our residents in Central Ohio, and we expect that other cities can kind of take measure of that and learn from our playbook that's on our Smart Columbus website and really translate some of these findings to their own city in a contextual way.
That's what I was thinking. So how do we compare when we look at the overall, is it growth of other cities and the programs? I say we, because I like to take credit for stuff that I had nothing to do with, that we implemented here in Columbus.
You know,
how does that compare?
Eden Strategy Institute just named us the number 11 smart city in the world, and then we're number 2 in the country, right behind New York City. Wait a second. I'm hearing like the Pace commercial in my head.
Say that one more time?
No, Eden Strategy Institute just named us the number 11 smart city in the world, and number 2 in the country behind New York City.
Wow, that's
so
impressive.
Columbus.
Yeah, that's just...
We've went from Columbus to the America's Smart City. But I want to not get too far off topic, but it's because of partners that we've brought to the table through Smart Columbus, like AEP, like COTA, MORPC, and there's many others in this room that we've been able to accomplish this, and that's the message. Through partnerships, we can accomplish everything, and we just have to have alignment and a common vision.
Wow. How about that collaboration? Was it? I'm hung up, if you can't see, on this intimidation thing.
I couldn't guess.
I am. This whole like changing and everything, Zoom, I didn't realize I've been using Zoom for a year before I returned to Columbus. And then I was like, oh, we have to use Zoom. And I was afraid to use it. And I thought, oh, I've been using this anyway. The idea of collaborating with organizations, other organizations, and having to get people on board. Any challenges in that? Is it more an excitement? And what's to come in the future of collaboration with smart changes in Columbus?
The only way the city can evolve and in fact make the progress that we need is through collaboration. There is no other choice that we have. And the reason why I say that is because everybody brings something to the table with respect to, AEP will bring the infrastructure to the table, COTA does bring the mobility to the table, so does any other, the larger companies here, Huntington, Cardinal Health, they want to promote green energy into and renewable energy transition to the table. And in fact, our residential customers just decided through the Columbus aggregation program that they want to go green. So it is, I think at the end of the day, we don't have a choice but to collaborate and figure out how to make it happen. And if we don't do that, today we are the second smartest city, tomorrow we won't be. And I think we don't have a choice in that way. I know intimidation is real, but think what pandemic did for our daily lives. You just said, I'm so comfortable with Zoom now.
I didn't say that.
You didn't say
Not
that.
what I said.
Maybe I took that leap of faith. But we all got more comfortable in terms of working from home through video calls. And that was a big transition from a utility, because during pandemic, we had to make a choice. Should we have 2,000 of our employees do bare essential things, as opposed to letting them know as if nothing happened and go fix the grid, because now I have 2 million customers working from home, and if they lose power, they can't work anymore. So that's the choice you have to make. So with collaboration is no longer an option. And in fact, only through collaboration we can be successful. Otherwise, we will no longer be the second smartest city. We'll be somewhere down the list.
Sophia, I saw kind of a light go off as in agreement.
Well, I think one of the things that Raj is saying, and I'm sure many of you in the audience have heard it, is talking about the Columbus way, of that we all really enjoy living in Columbus, and we want to see our city prosper and do better, and that means for all of our residents, right? We want all of us to do better and improve. And so I think, like he was saying, it all takes pieces of us to do that. No one can solve the whole thing together. No one can improve our whole city together. And then when you start to think about the growth that Central Ohio is going to see, a lot of estimates say that we're going to gain 1 million more people in the next 20 years. When you think about that growth, I think we all want Columbus to continue to prosper for all of our residents and still be a great place to live. And so all the different aspects and partners here in the room and those outside of here are a big part of that, of making Columbus continue to be that great place to live and continue to be on top of lists like that.
I tell you, whenever I hear that idea of growth and how many people will be coming to the area, I want to put a sign up and say, we are full. But we welcome the growth and welcome the change. We're going to take questions in just a few moments from our audience here and then our folks watching online. You all have, I will say, eased some of my reservations. But there are folks who are watching who are just kind of confused in all of this, folks who just don't get it. What do you want them to know, before we move into other questions, what do you want them to know about how the work you are all doing in a larger scale really affects them and why they should care?
Ooh. I know, that's a big question. I I think everyone should focus on, innovation in its basic form is trying something new. And so technology has an opportunity to improve lives in general. We can tailor, through smart city technologies, we can tailor our response to the resident. And one as we think about advanced data and using more information from, say, vehicles like windshield wipers, if we know they're on in a certain part of town, and we as the city are getting that information, we may want to deploy snowplows to that area, and we can help give more targeted resources. We're not there yet, but we can deliver services to our residents in a more targeted way. And that's the power of data and the power of technology. Raja talked about smart metering and knowing where outages are. That's an advancement for him. He's able to get information from our infrastructure and our system. And that's why we should care, because we all have a limited number of resources out there. We're not all going to be we're not flush with cash and unlimited amounts of money. So we have to strategically invest them in information, data, technology allows us to do that.
Mandy, if you use that snowplow thing again, you're going to win over a lot of folks, I'm telling you. I'm telling you. Did you all want to add?
Yeah, so I kind of view this as, is the technology change going to happen? It'll happen whether we are part of it, whether we collaborate or not. That change is coming. So what do we benefit through collaboration? I think the most exciting aspect of collaborating is making sure that everybody benefits as opposed to few benefiting from the technology change. And I think that's what the core of Smart City is. The core of Smart City objective is to promote technology, technology and availability of technology for everyone in the community as opposed to few in the community. And I think that, if you believe in prosperity for all, then I think this lends to a natural way of achieving it, as opposed to the traditional way of doing it is if you believe in the trickle-down effect, the top one will get it, and as iPhone gets cheaper and cheaper, everybody else will buy it, or iPhones, there won't be any other option but iPhone, so you have no option but to buy it, right? But this is enabling everybody to participate, and that's why you have charging stations, you have smart technology available to everyone in the community as opposed to few. That is a game changer in terms of how everybody can participate in the economy. So,
yeah, not getting left behind. Sophia?
Yep. I think one thing that I'd want anyone to take away in the audience or watching is that how people move in our community is really going to be an important aspect of our prosperity. And that does not necessarily mean someone who just uses public transit. Is if we can use technology, different types of mobility options, that is all going to impact how we move, and that all impacts the quality of your life, right? That impacts how long it might take you to get to a job. It impacts someone who has access to a job. They may not, if something that used to take 30 minutes now takes an hour, that job may no longer be feasible for that person. So how we move in our community is really going to affect the prosperity of everyone in our community, and that's where technology is going to be a big part of it, where we haven't been able to utilize those types of things in the past. But as I feel like I'm always saying, as Raja said, if it's not for everybody, it doesn't work. And I think that, again, is where the partnerships lie, of making sure that everybody is a piece of it and that we're not leaving anybody behind in the process.
Yeah, we all want to do what the cool kids are doing, right? So I'm going to conquer Zoom. Time for some questions now. Lainey Cuthbert joins us now, and you have been pooling some questions together. What do you have for us?
Thank you, Kerry. And I want to let everyone know here that this is from the live stream, but everyone here is welcome to ask questions as well. Talking about trust and building that trust in the community, Stephen Swift asks, what is being done to educate the residents in Linden about their access to the benefits of the SMART projects and how to maximize the resource?
Sure. We really focused, we had a grass tops and a grassroots approach, so we partnered with those community leaders to enlist them, educate them about the program and about the technologies. And then we ultimately, in some cases, went door to door, working with residents in Linden and educating them about the availability of the technology, postcards. We did, of course, use social media and et cetera, but we really focused on those boots on the ground outreach methods. I just actually was at South Linden Area Commission last night, thanking them for all their help and their participation in our program. Alyssa Chenault, who just rolled off of our program, spent many hours in Linden with Linden residents and Linden leaders, ensuring that they had access to the technology and that their input was heard and incorporated into our program throughout the program.
Patrick Dowse asks, what worked and what did not work with the projects that you used for the grant? What have you learned from your mistakes?
What really worked was, again, that resident focus on all of our projects. What didn't work was a pandemic that helped accelerate the demise of at least one project, our common payment system. We lost a lot of mobility providers. They had to really focus on their revenues and resources. I would say overall, one of the best collaborations, and I want to highlight Raja and Jordan here as well for their leadership, was the electrification program. We got all the partners on the bus, and then we got them all in the right seats. And it's really amazing when you align skill sets with the outcomes from the program. And I haven't had an opportunity to share this today, but I'll be passing that baton very, very soon to Jordan as the executive director of the next iteration of Smart Columbus. So continuing those partnerships and aligning the skills and resources is really something that does work in the community. And we were able to, reach our EV adoption goal of 3,400 vehicles in 2 years, reducing carbon footprint by 1,850 metric tons. And so that's really what worked, and what didn't was just not focusing on our residents does not work.
Hi, my name's Pam Conrad. I'm IBM retired, but now virtually full-time a condo board member, right? So our condo would love to install an EV charging station. However, it's not an expense that we can legitimately charge to the association funds. What advice can you give us as to the most efficient, best way we could install and finance an EV charging station at our condo complex?
You were looking at me, but I'm turning to Raja on this one. So,
the current EV charging program that we are successful in deploying, that was an incentive-based program where effectively, we provided up to 50, in some cases, 50% of the total cost of installation as an incentive to promote EV charging. The good news is it was very successful, and we completely satisfied that $10 million bucket of incentives that we were authorized to give. We do plan on making another application to expand the program given the success of the program. So I would say, either stay tuned. We intend to expand it, and if you truly believe that this transition's happening, the EV charging infrastructure at every condo or even in primary residence is going to happen much faster, and we want to make sure that we promote that as opposed to your point, allocating the cost to everybody.
So do you think that the infrastructure bill in Congress will include additional incentives of that kind for EV
Absolutely.
stations?
Yeah. So the current, I think both, at least the most recent infrastructure bill that we saw from, at least certainly from the Democratic side and from the Republican side, has some agreement on the EV element of it. So I would be shocked if there was an infrastructure bill that doesn't provide any incentive to electric vehicles, given that that's where the whole country is going. And if the big three automotives are, it's pretty more likely to happen.
Nevin Bansell asks, how can the small business community play a role in the future of Smart Columbus?
Well, Smart Columbus, in its next iteration, will be focusing on mobility. It'll be ensuring Columbus continues to lead in smart mobility. It'll be focusing on sustainability and helping us reach carbon neutrality by 2050. It'll be digitalization and really helping folks access the internet and broadband services and staying on top of emerging technologies and staying ahead of emerging urban tech. And so one of the things that folks can do is definitely stay connected to the Smart Columbus website. As the program continues to evolve, that'll share opportunities about how Smart Columbus does lead new projects. A lot of things will be incubated at Smart Columbus, and other partners may be executing them. So I would say get familiar with those board members as those are announced later on, and member companies, and get familiar with their types of business so that small businesses can jump in. Raja or Sophia?
Yeah, I mean, clearly the small businesses play a huge role with respect to the economy. I mean, most, as you all know, small business participation in this transition is key to keeping Columbus relevant. So, as I think Mandy mentioned, knowing what Smart Columbus is doing, providing feedback in terms of what small business cares about with respect to this transition, will go a long way. I mean, at the end of the day, the collaboration needs to not only be limited to larger companies and within the cities, but also all the communities, which small business play a huge role in it. So their participation is if not more important than what it used to be before. So.
I think one example of not just a small business, but any business could add is providing access to mobility benefits. One example that is already taking place in Columbus is the C-Pass, where multiple downtown businesses helped provide mobility options to their employees. And I think that, when we're talking about partnership, that's where we're all part of this picture, even though, everyone's part of it, and that's a big aspect of it, if they can help contribute to that as well.
Thank you. My name is Doug Buchanan. I'm the other Doug Buchanan. I think we're all really enjoying this conversation. Thank you so much. I know one of the innovations that I've been most excited about is the Smart Columbus parking app, the parking meter app, which is terrific. But I'm curious to know, what are the technological innovations looking forward that you're most excited about? So 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now, what are the innovations that you are most excited to see?
I'll go first. The snowplow.
Kerry wants strategically deployed snowplows immediately. So I'm going to let Sophia start.
Sure. I've highlighted a couple of them. One was our new fair payment technology, right? That will allow for mobile phone or smart card payments. In addition, it will expand our ability to digitize cash through over 400 retail outlets. Another project that I've not talked about is COTA is the first transit organization that is currently implementing a artificial intelligence project. So we're taking multiple different data sources from the 13 county regions and partners in that region to bring together that data and look at data of how we can lessen the time that you're on the road, but also improve safety. And I think that's going to be a big part of, as we grow as a city, is that using that technology to understand where perhaps congestion's happening, where accidents may occur, using that information to be more predictive, and then putting in measures to lessen those types of things. I think another aspect that we're working on, you may have seen, is micromobility. COTA has smaller vehicles in the South Columbus, Linden, and Westerville, where we're focused on providing smaller first last mile opportunity. During the pandemic, one of our innovations was bus on demand. COTA was the first transit organization in the United States, second in North America, someone in Canada beat us, where we had a couple of lines that we took down, but we knew that people still needed access to food and jobs and medical care. So we launched the first bus on demand, where you can actually stand at a transit stop and actually call the bus, and we're experiencing about a 12 to 15-minute response time there. So those are just some small tidbits of things that are coming, but you can see technology is a big part of that backbone to making those things happen.
Yeah, clearly for us in the utility space, this transition, electric vehicle transition, is probably the biggest one. And it has impacts, more than just the EV transition. I don't know if you can, I don't know if you heard about it, the Ford Lightning, the new truck that's coming up. The claim is that a lightning that is fully charged can power your home for 2 days. Just take a moment on that one. So if you have a fleet of electric trucks all across the entire system, the ability to actually rewire and not only serve your needs, but potentially if somebody else is out, you can actually power their home. That's a little transformative. And the way the grid is expected to operate is a lot more complicated than what it was. Now, till now, it's predominantly we produce power in these power plants, we ship them to you, and you're a taker, right? Now that's no longer the case. Now, half the time you could be powering other people, half the time you could be generating power, half the time you could be consuming power, and that the ability to seamlessly integrate all of this while, and so guess what? And now a major storm blows through, you're not that affected anymore. Or if a major storm takes down three nuclear plants, you're not that affected anymore. Because why? There are thousands of these electric vehicles that are already charged up and you're good for 2 days. So there's a whole slew of things that we haven't even contemplated, and then the possibilities of what could happen excites us. It might affect in a significant way, but we better be ready for it.
I think we need to take you all on tour. I think we have time for one more question. Think we get 2 more? Okay, let's do it.
Scott Taylor asks, the geography of Central Ohio lends itself to a north-south corridor, with there's already being paths and trails and roads. Linking these with east-west corridors would seem to be a challenge. What are the specific challenges and plans to address this issue? And he wants to know specifically if Worthington can play a part.
Well, so there's lots going on in the community, and as I've been in transportation for over 20 years now, there are lots of barriers to east-west travel in the state of Ohio simply by the fact of our geography and that everything drains to the Ohio River Basin. What we're really trying to do is provide connectivity, and one of the biggest programs that's going on right now, and this is led by the Department of Public Service, Central Ohio Transit Authority, and Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, is Link Us, and it's focused on transit, so bus rapid transit, high capacity transit is focused on connecting trails. It's focused on driving development where we want it to be. So it's really trying to not only provide connectivity, but also create those live, work, play environments and drive mixed income housing, drive mixed use development so that we can, again, live, work, play. And that's one of the region's biggest initiatives moving forward in the community.
So most of the conversation is about moving people to somewhere. During the pandemic, we learned that services could go to the people. The docs, the tech, the technology that the doctor was on the phone. I just heard someone say that they tried to make an appointment to have their tires rotated, and they'd planned an hour and a half to get it done, and only to find out the technician was going to come to their house, and loved it. Loved doing it because he got to interact with the customers more. Transportation, going both ways. Mobility with services, not just people. What's ahead for Smart Columbus when we think of things like that?
Well, I think you're going to see, again, some focus on that mobility and that emerging tech space. When you think about goods coming to people, we've had quite a bit of interest at the city, and Jordan and I partnered on one interview, gosh, it's been 6-8 months ago or more, where AV technology was wanting to operate in the fringe space of the roadway more for grocery and food delivery, picking up from restaurants. If you think about the national conversations and the work that Drive Ohio, the Ohio Department of Transportation is leading, you're looking at urban air mobility and freight delivery. So there's lots more evolutions to come in that space and continue to grow.
Very good. I think I hope the conversation was comforting for many of you as it was for me, because I really am intimidated by all of this. Speaking of being smart and doing things in a just way, since the bosses are here, my bosses, everybody applaud after I say this. Be sure to watch tonight for NBC 4 News at 6, 7, and 11. I will be sure to join you then and look forward to having you. Thanks so much for having me today, everybody.
Well, I hope you found today's forum
smart, maybe, is that the word we should use? I know this winter I'm going to tell all my neighbors, turn their windshield wipers on, see if that helps a little bit. Tell them Mandy advised us to do that. So make plans to join us in person online or next week at CMC as we feature the future of news in a digital world. Thanks to our sponsors today, the Columbus Partnership and NBC4. Also, thanks to the Emergency Response Fund of the Columbus Foundation for presenting our live stream in partnership with the Columbus Dispatch, PNC, and NBC4i. And thank you to our virtual online seat patrons. We appreciate that. And a special appreciation and thanks to our speakers, Mandy Bishop, Raja Sundararajan, Sophia Mohr, and of course our host, Kerry Charles. Thank you all for joining us, and we could not do this without you. We look forward to seeing you next Wednesday as CMC presents the Community Conversation. Thank you. Great job, guys. Excellent. Excellent.